If you are pained by external things, it is not this that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. And it is in your power to wipe out the judgment now. You see, most of our problems only exist in our imagination. A lot, like 90% of them, exist in our thoughts. But you see, when we bring our attention to the state of reality, which is now, there is only now, most of the time we realize that things are completely fine. That most of the time there's nothing wrong. But it's like we're carrying out around a baggage, a heavy baggage, baggage of thoughts or problems. But the moment we let them go, just like with the baggage, you feel like there has been some weight lifted off of our shoulders. See, worrying about the future, ruminating over the past, or putting our stories on the things that have happened, which is neither good or bad. They are just what they are, as they are. We put our stories on them, our judgments on them, as Marcus Aurelius said. But our judgments are in our control. We can change them if we want to. We can look at things from other perspectives. And let me just tell you a great story how I got this idea for this video. And the experience that I had with this idea is very interesting. And you can skip it if you want to, you see. I'm telling these stories to build some rapport between us and to make it more relatable. You see, not so long ago I was walking my dog, you see, around the neighborhood. It was very nice, it was a sunny day. It was still kind of chilly, there was a great breeze in the air before it got too hot here in the summertime. Then you see, as I was walking my dog, I got to a very nice scenery. You see, a great landscape. There were some, hills and trees and birds flying. It was amazing. So I had to stop there a little bit to look at the scenery and just wander in it. And it was very beautiful. But you see, right behind me there was a house. I was standing in front of a house, not that close to it, but in front of a house. And then out of nowhere I hear some kind of woman, not yelling at me, but she did raise her voice. And she told me something like, can't you just walk somewhere else, Isn't that the normal thing that everyone walks in his neighbor, like in front of his house? And I thought to myself, what is she talking about? I was doing nothing. I was not even facing her house. I was just standing here. My dog was sitting right next to me, you see. And I was just looking at the scenery. So now I was like, I'm not gonna, talk back to her. I just, okay, sorry. And I just went out of there. But you see, the thing was that it was still bothering me after like a minute of that thing happening. I was still thinking to myself, what is this woman thinking? Like, why is she so bothered by me just standing there? I was thinking to myself, oh, she ruined, my moment, but I was just, there wandering in the scenery. And this exact thought came into my head that, hold up, I'm just chilling here. Like, I'm walking my dog, it's beautiful out here. Yet, I'm disturbed because of my thoughts. Because I'm still carrying around that problem with me. Even though right now, there was nothing, everything was great. I was walking with my dog, great trees around me and all of that. But yet still, I was carrying the problem around with my head. So I thought to myself, but you see, this is the interesting thing. I wanted to, stop those thoughts, but you can't. You can't stop thinking by thinking about something else. It's like, try to not think of a pink elephant. It's the same idea. Or there's also another story, or how do you say this? Belief, or there's a word for it that doesn't come to my mind right now. Superstition, something like that. In India, that if you think about a monkey while taking your medicine, the medicine won't work. So next time you're taking your medicine, don't think about the monkey. So you see, but this doesn't work at all. From this time on, if you remember this, every time you take a medicine, you'll be reminded of that monkey. So in the same way, we cannot just force our thoughts out. You see, the problem was that I was just stuck in my head. I was thinking about the same things, and I was only looking at it from one perspective. And I also made videos about, question your thoughts, don't believe everything you think. Most of the time, the thoughts are the problem, the cause of the problems that you have, your thoughts. I thought to myself, okay, let's think of this from the lady's perspective. And I thought to myself, maybe she had a bad day. Maybe she didn't get enough sleep. Maybe she didn't want to say it that way. Maybe her husband is awful to her or something like that. Because you never know. And this really helped, you see, looking at it from another perspective. And also thinking, like I was not also just in the right. Like I was also, standing there for a minute. I mean, if someone just stood there, they're just completely still in front of my house for a minute, I would also probably get, a little bit worried. So you see, this actually helped quite a lot. Looking at it from other perspectives and not believing my initial thoughts, not believing in them, and just accepting them as facts, but getting some distance between those thoughts. Because you see, most of the time, thoughts just arise in our minds spontaneously, and we believe them. We take them as facts. We put our judgments or opinions on certain kind of things that have happened. That woman telling me some things. I put my judgment on it and just believed it. You see, but when I questioned it, they lost their power over my emotional state and all of that. This made me realize just how much of our problems only exist within our thoughts. That you see, that thing happened, and I was just carrying around those thoughts with me and carrying around that problem with me. But the moment I dropped it, I totally forgot about it. You see, but at that time, it was annoying me. It was frustrating me. But in reality, I was frustrating myself. It is not the external event that was frustrating me, but my own judgment of it, my own opinion of it. You see, the moment I changed those, it was gone. You see, I find this just so interesting that we are, frustrating ourselves. You see, the things out there, they are neither good or bad. They're not frustrating or not frustrating. We decide those. We put those labels on it. But they are just as they are, as it is. So you see, a lot of our problems come from our thoughts. But our thoughts are biased. They are just biased. This has been studied very rigorously. We have all sorts of biases. And in reality, our thought, the stories that we tell ourselves, are not reality itself. They do not reflect reality. Not at all. It's a very distorted, biased image of reality. Just this very small way of looking at it. So I find it very interesting. I actually recommend you to I think it's a great idea to look into how our minds work, our thoughts work. Some neuroscience, neuroscience. It's very interesting, and it can help you a lot to get some distance between your thoughts. And you see, because they are biased, because they are not a true reflection of reality, we can get very easily frustrated. And carrying those same thoughts around with us for maybe even months or years without questioning them. So this is one of the ideas, to question your thoughts, question your beliefs, your judgments about things, and realize that they are in your control. You can look at things from different perspectives, and that actually helps a lot. By the way, my name is Nagodin. I make videos about things that I'm interested in, mainly philosophy, things that I'm reading in my books, sharing the lessons that I've learned. And I also make videos about climbing, so hope you enjoy. Now let's take another example, which is very common nowadays, which is fear, anxiety, worry. Now what is fear? What is anxiety? You see, what do you feel when you're fearing something, when you're anxious? What is it that you're actually feeling? You see, fear is nothing else than just thinking about the feared event actually happening. In other words, you see, someone is afraid of sickness, then that just means that he's thinking about actually being sick and how that would be like. If someone is anxious or is fearing failing a test, then he's just thinking about what it would be like to actually fail that test. He's putting his thoughts in the future. He's got his eyes on the future. See, what happens when you bring your state, when you bring your attention to here and now, right now? Like, what do you actually feel when you're fearing something? You see, when we bring our attention to what it just feels like to be afraid, we find that we get this creepy feeling up our spines and this sinking or hollow feeling in our stomachs and some tension in our palms, or maybe some sweating in our palms, or maybe in our jaws. And that's it, really. That's all that's the matter with you. And now that's not very painful, is it? And that's all that's the matter with you. And that's the worst that life can do to you at that moment. And now notice this, and this is very interesting, you see, that when you have fear, you have exactly the same sensation in a completely opposite situation. When you have the shudder of thrills or the shudder of delights, it's the same shudders, the same creepy feeling of the spine, it's the same sinking, hollow feeling in our stomach and our palms. It's exactly the same feeling, but in an exactly opposite situation, in a positive situation. You see, whether or not a situation is positive or negative is determined by the context in which it arises. They depend on the context in which they occur. So you see, I mean, isn't this interesting? I mean, for example, when a father gives a slap on the back on his son, you see, if his son turns around, if he sees that his father is mad at him, if his head has this mad expression on his face, then that slap will hurt. It will hurt him. But if he looks around and he sees his father laughing or smiling at him, and he notices that he was just teasing him, the slap won't hurt at all. It just won't hurt. You see, it all depends on the context, how you interpret it. Just in the same way how words have different meanings in different contexts, in different sentences. You see, we weep, we cry when we're in the state of joy and when we're in a state of pain. It's the same tears, the same, crying happening. But what a difference does the context make? You see, it's all about how you interpret that event. For example, anxiety and excitement are very similar, and also anxiety and laughter. They're very similar. And if the next time you're anxious about the test, you see, you have the test coming up, or you're anxious about something, just look at it as you're excited about it. Just look at it as you're completely excited for that thing. And trust me, you will see the difference. It's very interesting. So you see, it's not about running away from fear or running away from suffering, but it's about looking at the actual oh shit. I just dropped my katana. I'm using this cool, small little katana. I got this from Berlin when I went to a samurai museum. It was very cool. So the point is that do not run away from fear or run away from suffering, but to look at the actual concrete reality of what we feel right now and forgetting about the context. Just face the pain and experience it as if it was the only thing that there was to do at this moment. Facing it completely, being completely present at it. You see, there's a bit of story that illustrates this idea. You see, a student once asked his master, "It is terribly hot. How shall we escape the heat?" He's asking about the whole suffering of being a human. What are we to do about the suffering? The master answered, "Go right down to the bottom of the furnace." "But in the furnace," said the student, "how do we escape the scorching fire?" And the master's final words were, "No further pains will harass you." So then you see, it's about going right down to the bottom of the furnace. You see, you can find this idea everywhere. You see, going, facing the monster, facing the dragon, facing that thing, going right down into it, and that's where they find bliss. That's where they rescue the princess or whatever. So you see, it's not about resisting suffering, resisting worry, resisting all of this, pushing it away, but about accepting it totally and going along with it. See, not resisting the current of life, because the current of life takes you with him no matter what you do. It takes you along no matter what you do. So, resisting it and swimming against the current only does you bad. Well, it's only bad for you. You see, it's only the only thing that comes out of it. It's completely useless, first of all, because it takes as we said, the current of life takes you with it. The only thing that results of that is you frustrating your own self. That's the only thing that you're doing by resisting the current. You see, it's about accepting it. Because when you resist it, you set up a vicious cycle. Because when you resist worrying, then if you are worrying in the given situation, then you begin to worry that you're worrying. Then you're worrying about the fact that you're worrying about worrying, and so on. You set up this vicious cycle. So you see, if you're worried, just be worried. It's that simple. Be willing to be worried. Because you see, sometimes being worried is just as a natural response as it is for fire to be warm, just as natural. So you see, If you're in pain, cry. If you get the shudders of death, if you get the fear of death, the thinking about the fact, thinking about you not existing, and you're afraid of that, then just be afraid of that. Just dig that feeling, feel it completely, not resist it. Don't push it down and repress it. We know that's never a good idea. And you see, responding in a natural way, or natural reactions to pain can actually be therapeutic. It can actually be healing. You see, crying when you're in pain, screaming, whatever. Responding in a natural way can be healing actually. But you see, in today's society, we've been conditioned to think that it's weak to respond in a natural way. That it's gay, it's sissy. You see, it's not manly to cry when you're in pain. It's a completely natural response. And it can actually alleviate and lessen the suffering. And you see, what you'll find that when you're willing to be worried, it often makes it unnecessary to do so. So then, to do a quick recap, we talked about realizing that we are putting our own stories, our own judgments, our own opinions on events, and the events themselves are not really good or bad. They are just as they are. And we are casting our labels on them. We talked about focusing on this moment and taking things step by step, bite by bite, living through this moment as it is the only thing that we have to do in this whole world, living through suffering like that. And we also talked about not flowing against the river, because it's completely useless. It takes you with it anyway, so you just make yourself frustrated. And we talked about accepting the situation that you're in, really, not fighting against it, and just accepting also the side of yourself that doesn't want to accept it. That's the tricky part. That's kind of a paradox there. And you see, when you're worried, just being worried. You see, when you're in pain, just cry. And now if you're interested, I'm doing free one-on-one calls. You can send me an email, we'll arrange a video call, and we can chat, we can have a talk. So if you're interested, the email in the description. So thank you for being here. If you have any questions, thoughts, if you think what I said was stupid, please leave a comment. I'm very interested to read those. So thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and where's my katana? Where did he go? Anyway, have a great day and goodbye.